listening to the presentation. I hope you learned a lot of useful information that you can share with your friends, your family members, and your representatives. All right. When you were in Minnesota, did any of the local TV stations cover any of your information or choose to interview you? If not, what response were you given and why? Yeah, no, none of the local media interviewed me. They just wrote hit pieces about me. So they definitely reported on what I was doing, but it was always negative. So when I showed up to Ilhan Omar's campaign event in Minneapolis when she was still a candidate, I asked her why she married her brother. I asked her why she hates Jews. I asked her about her terror ties. And the Star Tribune printed in the paper that I was a white supremacist. So the way that they phrased it is that, oh, a white supremacist who used to work for Project Veritas came to Minnesota with unfounded conspiracies and anti-Muslim racist questions. That's literally what they printed. I still have the copy of the Star Tribune at my place. So it's unfortunate, but you know. No, because they don't care about the truth. They don't care. You know, the Star Tribune is only now reporting this, but, you know, this is not something that they should have ignored. They can't just now publish an article 3 years after the fact or whenever, however long it's been since Omar first landed on the map here in Minnesota as a politician and say, well, you know, new documents. No, these aren't new documents, okay? The documents have been available. They've been sent to members of the mainstream media, and everybody with a brain who is willing to, you know, not just be a puppet for the left-wing mainstream media, and anybody who doesn't suffer from Trump derangement syndrome knows that this is not a new story. You know, it's a shame. Is it true Omar raised $600,000 in the last 3 months? Please tell me it's not true. I believe she's raised more than $600,000. I hate to say it, but just the other day, the Turkish media and the Iranian state media were encouraging people to donate to Ilhan Omar. And I published this report on my website. So, you know, of course it's collusion when they accuse President Trump of colluding with the Russians and supposedly taking money from the Russians. But it's not collusion when you have the Turks and the Iranians, enemies of the American people, printing in their state media, donate to Ilhan Omar. That is treason. What is one thing we can do? Any suggestions? Isn't it already true that we're already controlled slaves? Isn't abortion like the Holocaust? Well, yes, we are kind of already controlled slaves. You see how many people just believe the information that the mainstream media gives to them. And that's why I showed you the article that the Huffington Post deleted, because the media is not only lying to the people, but they're manipulating and choosing when to distribute facts so that it can fit their agenda, right? So talking to Turkey is bad when you're General Flynn and when you're a Trump supporter. But let's delete those stories, right? Let's delete those news stories when we're talking about Ilhan Omar. So the thing that you can do is you can start speaking up. Don't allow people to intimidate you by calling you names. Call your representatives. Start protesting. They do some wonderful protests in Minnesota, and I know Marnie and Michelle and others here today would be happy to teach you how to protest. I always hear from people, protesting is for liberals. I have a job. I have a family. Well, guess what? Liberals have jobs and families too, okay? It's time to stop with the excuses and get out there and start organizing and protesting, because if you don't, you're going to lose your country. And you might as well just start learning Arabic, okay? If you're not going to be willing to go out and protest, then what are you waiting for? You know, just go to your local mosque already. How does a social media platform get set up? Is it cost prohibitive? Why can't a conservative platform be set up? Well, it's very expensive to get something going like a larger mainstream platform like Facebook or Twitter. And sure, you hear a lot of Republicans say, well, you're not a real conservative if you believe in government intervention. What do you mean you want the social media companies to be regulated? That's not a conservative idea. Well, we're not living in the time of a free market anymore, because when Google and Twitter and Facebook have so much control that when a successful conservative platform like Gab or Parler actually is created, but then they tell them they're going to delete them if they allow allow for banned individuals like myself and Alex Jones to have profiles, that's not the free market. Okay, that's called a monopoly. That's called tyranny. I know some people are buying merchandise in the back, and I do have these incest Omars, she married her brother shirts available. And on the back they say no Sharia in the USA. So if you would like to wear this and educate what you can do, you know, you can buy a t-shirt and you can wear this to the grocery store and wear it around and educate people. What do you mean incest Omar, she married her brother? People need to know. You know, and I feel like a lot of people don't know. That's the problem in this country, is the media is so fake. The fake news is such an enemy of the people that people really don't know, right? And so while you may think to yourself, well, how do people not know what CARE is? Or how do people not know that we're being, you know, subverted by Islamic influence? Well, a lot of people don't. So you gotta encounter and treat everyone that you meet as a blank slate, as someone who you can educate. Do you have concrete evidence that Omar's family changed their names and worked for the communist regime in Somalia? Well, there's a lot of evidence that shows that Ilhan Omar put false information on her paperwork, and her family put false information on their paperwork when applying for asylum here. There was a report today, I believe, that came out from Powerline that was then reprinted by Breitbart, and you can read the specifics for yourself. But there's a lot of information out there, okay? Whether it's fraudulent marriage, using campaign funds to pay for her divorce from her brother. I mean, it just sounds so fake. You can't even make this stuff up, you know? What used to get you removed from Congress or political office 10 years ago, I mean, I cannot believe this is happening in America. It seems like, it almost seems like some type of weird, like, dystopian novel. But there's a lot of information out there, and you live in Minnesota, so I would recommend you read Powerline and Alpha News, because they have a lot of great information. Is there any way that we can have Lady Omar, well, look, I'm not an advocate for violence, right? The question was about the punishment for treason. You cannot be violent, okay? The left, this is what they want. They want to drive you insane. They want to drive you insane with their insanity, and they want you to react in a violent way. And I know many of you are very frustrated, and I know many of you have thoughts of things that you probably would never say in public. But you must never resort to violence, okay? We must be above violence and only react when it comes to defending ourselves when people attack us with violence. You know, because that's what they want. They want to have an excuse to shut down your free speech, and they want to have an excuse to silence all of us, to take away the guns, right? This is what they're doing. So you must always rise above that and use facts, use reason, use logic, because at the end of the day, it doesn't matter how much you try to silence someone, it doesn't matter all the lies you say, the truth always comes to light. And it took forever, but now the truth is finally coming to light, and President Donald Trump is having press conferences in which he's saying Ilhan Omar married her brother. So, you know, I condemn all forms of violence, and so that's not to say that Ilhan Omar isn't guilty of treason, you know, but that's up to the government to find her guilty of, and if she is guilty of treason, well, she's going to have to deal with the punishment of treason, and we all know what that is. So, with Keith Ellison's hatred regarding police, how do we remove him from office? Help us, please, we need a plan. Well, the Police Association in Minnesota had actually held a press conference when Keith Ellison was running, and I was out here reporting on it, and they had said that they don't believe that he's fit for office. He endorsed members of Antifa, which is a terrorist organization. Antifa uses violence. They chant things like put pigs in a blanket, and of course they're referring to police officers. They hate America, they hate cops, they often chant, you know, F the police, kill the police. I wish there was something I could tell you in terms of what to do, but you just have to keep speaking up. It's very unfortunate. He won the election even while having multiple domestic violence, you know, accusations against him. And I tried my best, and Doug Wardlow was actually winning in the week prior to the election, I think largely in part because of the activism and the journalism I was doing. You know, I organized a group of domestic violence survivors, we confronted Keith Ellison, it was wonderful. But then Twitter shut my account down for 7 days, and they conveniently did it for exactly 1 week, and that was the week of, the last week of October, or the beginning of November leading up to the election. So even when you have a plan, sometimes the plan isn't good enough, because I had a plan and I don't make a lot of money, I'm 26 years old, I put a lot of my own personal money into this, and I invested what I had into my plan, and I made these videos, and I did these investigations, but at the end of the day it wasn't enough because the social media companies cut off my ability to get my message out and really implement the plan. So it's unfortunate. It's a real crisis. That's why I said tech censorship is a huge issue. And I know a lot of you may not use social media yourself, or you may think, yeah, I lived life. We didn't have social media. These kids can learn how to get over it. And we're living in a different time now, right? I'm 26 and I grew up on the internet. I grew up learning about Facebook and MySpace and all these social media companies, which are only going to further be used, right? We're only moving towards a more digital society. So whether it's your kid's life or your grandchildren's life or your great-grandchildren, we're only going to become more dependent and reliant on social media and the internet as time goes on. Right? And they're talking about digital currency now, like cryptocurrency, and Facebook is trying to implement their own crypto coin called Libra. And just this week, during a congressional hearing, a guy from Facebook was being asked about Libra, right? Because Facebook wants to control the cryptocurrency world. They want to have total control of all crypto. And they were asked, they said, this representative, it was a Republican, I forget his name, but he goes, what's wonderful about the US dollar is anybody can use it. It doesn't matter who you are, it doesn't matter what people think of you, anybody can have access to the US dollar. Does Facebook have a plan to allow individuals who they have banned to use Libra? And the Facebook representative said, we don't know, we haven't written the policy yet. So just imagine a world, right, let's just say, and I'm not saying this is going to happen, but let's just say more of these Democrat politicians and tech billionaires like Jack Dorsey and Mark Zuckerberg continue to grow in power. And let's just say that we come to a point where it becomes so overwhelming that there's really no strong Republican leadership in, let's say, 10, 15, 20 years from now, and technological advancements increase. And let's just say that people stop using debit cards and credit cards, and they stop carrying cash, and some type of tech advancement, right, I'm just using my imagination, is created, and everybody just starts paying for everything with digital currency. Well, the people who are in control of that digital currency, are they going to be able to cut you off from having any money to pay for groceries, to pay for your medical needs, to pay for food, to pay for anything if they decide they don't like your politics? This is what's happening in China right now. And I encourage all of you to look it up, but this is the problem. And we need to start thinking about these things. We need to start using our imagination and saying, what if? It sounds real dystopian, but if I were to tell some of you, especially some of the older people in the audience, that we were going to have, social media companies and presidents were going to be tweeting and the news was going to be reporting the news from social media, you probably would think that the person was crazy or on drugs. But here we are, That's the world we live in. Why are all the Democrats so eager to open borders and give free Medicare to illegals? Well, because they get people like Huma Abedin by opening their borders, right? You get more of these anti-American invaders and infiltrators who come to this country and want to spew their hate, and the Democrat Party offers them a bunch of welfare. They offer them a bunch of recipients. I mean, look, I don't need to tell you guys. You just go down to Carmel Mall or go down to some of these Somali areas in Rochester and Minneapolis, and you see all the Somalis pull up in their Escalades with their EBT cards and their welfare benefits and their 10 kids and, their new iPhones and their designer handbags. Okay? You have Somali immigrants who are getting housing, but you have Native Americans living in tents on the side of the street when it's snowing in Minnesota. You have Minnesota residents, American citizens, dying in tents on the side of the street from drug overdoses assistance. They can't get the social service aid money in Minnesota because it's all going to the Somalis. That's why, you know, it's like heroin. When you get people hooked on welfare, you get people hooked on a benefit, you can control what they do and how they behave. And that's why the Democrats want open borders. They want to promise all these illegals sanctuary, they want to give them free aid, and then they hook them, just like you hook someone on drugs, and then they're able to get the votes that they need to take over. Oh, I see. Yeah. I hear there's a news crew across the street, so, you know, who knows what they're here for, but I know a lot of you were kind of nervous about coming out tonight because of issues of doxing, and so, you know, just be aware that the media is out there. I also am selling these hats, so in terms of social media bias, right, the movement is called the Stop the Bias movement, and the way that I'm combating a lot of the censorship is I'm suing. So I filed a lawsuit against Twitter and CARE. I filed that lawsuit in April, and we'll see what happens. But I'm suing them because my contract with Twitter, right, when you sign up to join a social media company, you sign a term of service that is you and the company. Well, they're not telling you that a designated Islamic terrorist organization is going to go in there and lobby to get you banned because they don't like the fact that you're Jewish, or they don't like the fact that you're blowing the whistle on Sharia and they're terror-tied, you know, Jew-hating congresswomen. I'm also suing Facebook. Last week I filed a lawsuit against Facebook for defamation. But lawsuits take a really long time. You know, we need immediate solutions. We can't allow for people to continue to have their livelihoods destroyed by these companies. And I'm very fortunate because even though I'm banned and my life has become very difficult lately because of the censorship, I'm lucky that I am kind of famous in a way. Because what happens to the everyday American who didn't have 265,000 followers? What happens to the everyday American who wasn't, you know, big on social media, who this is happening to, right? A lot of people aren't going to be talking to them or coming to listen to them speak. And so, like I said, it can affect what has happened to me will happen to you, and it can happen to you. And this is why members of Congress and the Trump administration need to act on this issue of tech tyrants and the social media bias. Because it's through censorship that the Democrats are going to try to steal the election. Right? And I tried to warn about this. They had a social media hearing in Congress last year where Jack Dorsey testified. And he committed perjury. So I stood up and I confronted him and I disrupted the congressional hearing and I got thrown out. But I said, you're a liar, Jack. You know, you're lying to these representatives on taxpayer money saying that you're not censoring conservatives, but you were caught on tape by Project Veritas. And this is what I mean about a lack of leadership in the Republican Party, okay? You have people who are serving on committees and they're supposed to be doing a job and having these tech tyrants testify, and they're supposed to be bringing evidence and doing research ahead of time, but they're not. And even worse than that, right? Because let's be honest, a lot of these representatives, they're so old and they are such career politicians and they've been in there for so long, they probably aren't posting on social media themselves. They have a team of people doing it for them. Do you think they care about Twitter? No, no one really cared about Twitter in Washington, D.C. until President Trump started running for president, right? Because that's how he gets his message to the people. And that's why they're trying to shut everybody down on social media. It's a very sad situation. If Trump doesn't win in 2020, do you believe Sharia law will be put in place, and how? Do you believe that the silent majority will raise hell? Well, even if Trump wins in 2020, like I said, we're only going to have Trump for 4 more years, and even with Trump in the White House, this is still happening. Look, President Trump can't see and know everything and do everything. He's only one person. We have people in Congress and representatives and people at the local and state level to do this, to prevent it. Do you think this stuff is going to be stopped on a national, federal level? No. The way to stop it immediately is through grassroots initiatives once it starts boiling and making itself present on a local, state level. But unfortunately, what happens is it happens on a local, state level. Nobody does anything about it. You know, in the case of the Republican Party in Minnesota, they're also scared of being called Islamophobes. I'm not going to name names, okay, but I've had meetings with some of these Republican officials here who put me in the back room in the corner of Starbucks because they were so scared of being seen in public with me, okay? And they said, well, Laura, like, I agree with everything you're saying, but we can't say it because we just can't offend the Somalis. Why? Why are they so afraid of offending these people? Why is it a crime in America to offend somebody? We have a First Amendment right, and we're allowing our First Amendment right to be completely obliterated because we're worried about the feelings of these invaders who don't even want to pledge allegiance to the United States of America, okay? They're voting to get rid of the Pledge of Allegiance. Wake up, Minnesota. Wake up. These people aren't coming to America to get a better life. It's called replacement and displacement, and it must be stopped. Implemented. Okay, there are places in Minneapolis, in Little Mogadishu, there are places in Michigan, even New York City where they have Sharia police. They've been spotted in Minneapolis. There have been men that have been seen in orange vests who walk around with vests that say Sharia police, and they go and they intimidate people and they impose Sharia. In Michigan, they have the same thing. They have Sharia courts in Dearborn, Michigan. In New York City, just a few weeks ago, people started noticing these cars that said Muslim patrol cars. Why do we need a Muslim patrol? I don't see a Jewish patrol. I don't see a Christian patrol. I don't see a Buddhist patrol. What exactly are you patrolling? Oh, yeah, that's right. Muslim values on the street, right? Your dress is too short. Cover up your hair. No holding hands in public. No public affection. I mean, this is happening in major American cities. Okay, we're not talking about little towns that no one's ever heard of. We're talking about major American cities. We're talking about New York City post 9/11. This is very dangerous. The explanatory memorandum. Okay. So, look, I mean, we can talk about this forever, and when I was told that I could come to Minnesota and give a talk for an hour, I mean, it took me a long time to even just minimize my presentation to get it into an hour. Even then, you know, it's been over an hour, because there's just so much to talk about, and I can't adequately inform all of you about how serious this threat is and all the information you need to know on how to combat it in 1 hour. It's just not enough time. You know, this is stuff that people spend weeks and years learning. I mean, I have been studying this stuff for years. There are courses taught on this stuff. There are books. It's not as simple as just attending a one-hour lecture. You know, I'm still learning, and I know a lot about this. But the explanatory memorandum is kind of the blueprint. And if there's one thing that you should go home and Google tonight, it is the explanatory memorandum. And what it is it's a document that was obtained in an FBI raid in Annandale, Virginia, in, I believe, 2004. And it was discovered in the home of Ismail al-Barassi, who was a senior Muslim Brotherhood official. And the process that pretty much led investigators to this home raid was an investigation into several Muslim individuals who were pictured taking photographs on a bridge outside the nation's capital. Because why were they taking pictures of a bridge? Because they were planning to blow the bridge up and carry out a terrorist attack. And the investigators, through their investigation, ended up getting to the senior Muslim Brotherhood official's home. And they discovered a document called the Explanatory Memorandum. And the Explanatory Memorandum is the blueprint for the Muslim Brotherhood in America as to how they are going to implement an Islamic caliphate and impose Sharia law. And this is not a conspiracy. Like, I love when people call me a conspiracy theorist because I don't ever tell reporters that they're not welcome. I don't ever tell reporters, you know, it wasn't my decision, it was printed on the Eventbrite, no reporters, but they were more than welcome to come. I have never backed away from an interview or a question because unlike CNN, I can actually justify the things I say with facts and documents. These people just don't want to listen. And the document outlines a step-by-step process in 5 stages, I believe it's 5 stages, 4 to 5 stages, on how they're going to implement the Islamic caliphate. And this is a document that is now it's in the FBI possession. You can see the FBI stamp on this document. There have been books written about it. And this was discovered in the early 2000s. And they talk about conquering and infiltrating the United States government through a process of civilization jihad, which is what I was explaining earlier in the presentation. So when you hear people say, oh, don't say Muslims have a plan to take over America, that's racist. No, Muslims actually do have a very organized plan to take over America and subvert our government and implement an Islamic caliphate and ensure that every single United States citizen does not know what the United States Constitution is, but is instead reading the Quran and practicing Sharia law. And it's called the Explanatory Memorandum. Right? And you may think, oh, well, it's never going to happen. We're not going to be able to implement those stages. No, we're actually, they have been very successful in implementing the Explanatory Memorandum, and we're in the ending stages of it. Okay? And they are very successful, these Islamic organizations, and the main one, like I said, is CARE. This Muslim Brotherhood document, Explanatory Memorandum, is being implemented by the highest levels of this organization, known as the Council on American Islamic Relations. So you need to familiarize yourself with them. And they're the same organization that tried to shut me down tonight. Okay, they were contacting the mayor, they were contacting the media, they were harassing the church, the pastor. People were saying, oh my God, how can you have this hateful, racist woman come? She hates Muslims, she's such a bigot. People are gonna get hurt. Well, I haven't said anything hateful tonight. Everything I've said has been justified and proven. I've shown you facts. I printed up a document for you. This is a real document, okay? This is real research that every American ought to know and ought to be informed about, but we're not, because the media has failed us. The media, as a fourth estate, is supposed to be a watchdog for the people, okay? It's supposed to inform the people. It's supposed to be a protector for the people. They're supposed to let us know when things like this are happening. But now, right, there's so much special interest money involved in media, the mainstream media, and you see there's so many Democrat politicians who are in bed with members of the mainstream media, literally and figuratively, right? You'd be surprised to see how many marriages there are, and I'm talking about actual marriages between people who work in the Obama administration and people who work at CNN. I mean, it is so incestuous. Okay, Ilhan Omar's not the only one committing incest here, you guys. But no, really, it really is a problem. And you should go home and Google it tonight. You gotta go Google Explanatory Memorandum, because this is something that, I don't know, a lot of you have probably come and listened to John Guandolo when he's come to Minnesota. He does a really great job understanding the threat.com. The Center for Security Policy has a lot of great resources, but you should write it down, Explanatory Memorandum, and just read it. And know that this is a document that the FBI is aware of, okay? Has the FBI stamp on it, yet nothing's being done. Why is the Republican Party so blind and inept about Islam in America? If you search long enough, you find ISIS has a Facebook page. Yeah, I know ISIS has a Facebook page, because the same exact week that I got banned on Facebook and designated as a terrorist, they said I was too dangerous to be on Facebook, but then a whistleblower from Facebook published a report and a complaint with the government that said that when Facebook did an audit and they promised that they were going to implement policies to combat terrorism by implementing algorithms to kind of detect when terrorists were promoting content. That's how they search through a lot of this info, through algorithms. Well, Facebook didn't curb any terrorism at all. In fact, they were auto-generating advertisements for ISIS. So they did the exact opposite of what they said they were going to do. So just let that sink in, right? A 26-year-old Jewish conservative Trump supporter who goes around confronting politicians on her cell phone and breaking stories about the Islamic threat in America is more dangerous than ISIS, which is murdering, you know, God knows how many Christians, right? They're committing terrorist attacks all over the world. The FBI has reported that ISIS is present in all 50 states. Your lovely Congresswoman Ilhan Omar is advocating for them. I mean, it's really insanity. It's insanity that now conservative Americans and Trump supporters are being branded as terrorists while actual terrorists are roaming freely and having more representation in Congress than I'll ever have. Not a single member of Congress has spoken out in my favor to support me in this deplatforming crisis that I have really become the face of. Because I am the most banned person in this country. I don't think there's anyone more banned than I am besides maybe Alex Jones. And not a single one has come to my defense. Because they're scared. The Republican Party is scared that if they say my name, or if they invite me to an event, or if they didn't even invite me to the social media summit at the White House they had this last week, because the media writes hit pieces and they accuse people of being racist, and everybody's so concerned about getting reelected that they throw you under the bus, right? Just like they threw me under the bus when I came to Minnesota last year. But can I really blame them, right? They need to have social media. They need to have social media in order to get their campaign messages out. And if Facebook is threatening to ban people off of association, just if you type somebody's name into Facebook, you'll get banned too. So when they labeled me a dangerous individual, they said, anybody who posts content about the dangerous individual will also be banned because you are promoting a terrorist. So a couple days later, Michelle Malkin, who I love, she's a friend of mine, she posted my picture on her Facebook page, and she posted a picture of Gavin McInnes as well. And when she posted our pictures, Facebook sent her a message that said, you need to delete this post or else we will ban your account because you are in violation of our dangerous individuals policy. I mean, I kid you not. And we're talking about Michelle Malkin, who is a very famous conservative. You know, it's out of control. This is why it's not just the Republican Party, but you're right. When it comes to the Republican Party, they need to grow a backbone. They need to stand up. They need to fight back against these social media companies. We need to stop having politicians who are serving on these committees in Congress and having these tech executives testify, receiving money from the companies who they are supposed to be interrogating. Jerry Nadler, okay, he gets up and he's supposed to be overseeing one of these tech hearings. And you have one of the executives from Google who's having to testify to Congress about social media censorship and antitrust violations. And Jerry Nadler goes, well, you guys, we all know that this is just a right-wing conspiracy theory. There's no such thing as social media bias against conservatives. This is just a right-wing conspiracy theory ginned up by President Trump and his supporters. Well, guess who Jerry Nadler's #1 campaign donor was? Google. Okay, so it's not a conspiracy theory. We just have inept politicians on both sides of the aisle who are used to being career politicians, and they're taking money from the people who are actually committing crimes against Americans and violating and depriving us of our constitutional rights. The First Amendment of the Constitution, which separates this country from every other country on earth, making us the greatest and most powerful country on this planet. Nobody else in the world gets to enjoy the First Amendment, and we are watching it disappear in front of our eyes because of greedy politicians in Washington who would rather, worry more about the hit pieces that are coming out against them, or worry more about having buddies at Google, right, or being liked by Jack Dorsey and Mark Zuckerberg, than defending the rights that they were elected to and took an oath to, swearing that they would uphold and protect. They're not doing their job. And when you talk about Sharia being implemented, well, you have Muslim representatives who are refusing to take their oath as serving as